Hello, this is Ivan Sproule. Watch my exclusive interview on Hibernian TV.
Ivan, a very warm welcome home back to Hibernian. What's your take on the transfer back to Easter Road, please?
It's obviously, since I've left the club, it's always been something that's been linked with on the papers and that I would always return home. And when I took the chance to move to England, it was at the right time, I felt. I was very disappointed to leave the club. Went down to Bristol City and left Hibernian with a lot of good friends, and left the club, but left them for the reasons that I wanted to give it a shot and try and get into the Premier League in England. But at the same time, there was a part of me that I think stayed back at the club as well, because I had so many good memories and the club were so good to me. So I think even when I was at Bristol City, it was always in the back of my head. At some stage I wanted to come back up to Hibs, and I've had a few opportunities maybe to stay down in England, but I told my agent that this was the place that I wanted to come back to, and the club, and he's worked on it, and as I say, it's happened now, and there's nobody happier than me at the minute.
How would you sum up your affinity with Hibernian and your relationship with the fans here?
I don't know, it was special. I think I come from the Irish League as a bit of an unknown, and Tony Mowbray just took a complete chance on me. And it was a bit of a whirlwind. I was growing up as a young man at that time, and the fans were great. Even if you weren't having the best game, I think as long as you showed them the passion and the desire for the club that the club requires, that they always stuck by you, and that's something that I always thought that I gave to the club. And even when I was at Bristol City, it was more Hibernian family I got than Bristol City. So even in those 4 years away, I was still kept very much in touch with the club.
Obviously in those 4 years away, a lot's changed back here in Leith, and obviously here in East Lothian. We're talking in the studio here at East Mains, our new training relatively new training facility. What's your verdict on that?
I'd say it's mind blowing, because when I was here it was getting taxied in a bus down to Musselburgh, or other places. We used to go running up Arthur Street, and the facilities that we had were in parks, and it was there was a man and his dog out maybe on the pitch whenever you were doing set pieces and stuff before you were going to go to Ibrox. So it's mind blowing what they've got out here, the facilities. It's in power with anything that's down in England. I've trained at Blackburns and a few other Premier League clubs before we played games at Bristol, and this is right up there. So as I say, it's the place now where they can develop their youngsters, and it's a credit to the club, and a credit to Rod and everybody else that's worked very hard to get this over the years.
Have you managed to have a look at the new look Easter Road as well, with the East Stand?
I haven't been back at the stadium yet, but on my travels, maybe way back to the airport, we'll go via Easter Road just to get a quick glimpse again, and it's exciting times for the club. The club's gone through maybe a transition. They've had a few managers since I've left, and as I say, maybe a few different squads. But the gaffer now, Collins, come in, and he's trying to put together a side that can start climbing up the table again. And I think the youngsters that he's got, and as was described as last week as one of the veterans now, we can give that bit of experience from England and that to these youngsters. I think it'll be exciting times.
We mentioned obviously how much Hibernian has changed in the past 4 years. How have you changed, do you feel? How have you matured and developed as a player?
As I say, when I left the club, I was still only, I think, into my third season at Hibs. So professional football I was just probably grasping at that time. First season down at Bristol, we got a game away from the playoff final. As I say, I played nearly all the games that year, and it was a big challenge for me. Second and third year, similar things. Just missed out in the playoffs and played regularly. So the Championship's a great standard of football, a great league, and everybody watches the playoff finals, and everybody watches the teams that are in the Championship now. The likes of I've played against the Newcastles, the Middlesbroughs, the Leeds. The endless names goes on, Ipswich. So you've had to be on your toes, and the squads are so big down there. So there's so much money. So I've got that. I would say coming back, I'm a more stronger and wiser player than I was when I left. So as I say, when I left, I felt as if I was leaving a bit early, but I was a bit selfish, and I took the decision for myself and my family. for the future, to give them that bit of stability, and I went and done that. But I think by coming back now, some people have said to me, you're going back up to Scotland too early, but I feel as if coming back to give something back to the club, and if I can help this next crop of players push on and achieve some great moments, I'll have a clear conscience.
What's your initial verdict on the current Hibernian manager as well, Colin Calderwood, and what's the dialogue that perhaps you've had already about your role?
Well, he's been obviously when I was younger I used to be a Spurs fan, so that was the first thing I can remember of him. As a centre half, but he was a committed player, someone that obviously wore his badge of pride. He took over at we had Nottingham Forest, he done a great job with them. I've knew a few lads that maybe had played under him there. In his assistant manager job at Newcastle. So you don't get these kinds of jobs if you're not someone good reputation. He's certainly got that behind him. The first time I met him was when I flew up to see the new training ground, and first impressions meant a lot because he was honest. He told me where the club stood at the minute, told me where the club wanted to go, and he sold the club pretty well to me. And I come away from that meeting that day, and the one thing that I took out of it, that I thought he was an honest man. And I think if you work for honest people, you'll always be treated well. So I think hopefully this season me and him can work well together.
Of course, last season came to a close, but there was a genuine sense of disappointment about how Hibernian finished. We obviously ended up in 10th spot, and there was a general flatness. Obviously, your arrival hopefully will bring that feel-good factor back to Easter Road. And what's your take on trying to help that transformation?
As I say, it's great to be. I think if I'm the first one in or whatever, that's going to be great. I'm just coming in to be part of a cog, part of the Hibernian, the way they do things. Obviously, I'm sure there'll be more to follow me, and I'm sure maybe there'll be a few more experienced ones to follow me in the door. And I think if we can add that to the squad, as someone that has kept an eye on Hibs, I've watched their games and kept an eye on things. And some of the games that they've lost this season, it's maybe not to do with football novelty, it's maybe to do with a lack of experience. And I think the manager knows, the coaches know that where they have to strengthen and what kind of characters they need to get in. And as I say, if I can be one of those characters and one of those parts that are strengthened in the team, well, it'll move on. But the fans at Hibernian demand, and they do deserve. But I'm sure they'll understand that it is a process that's happening here, and let's hope next year we can emulate something that Motherwell, you look at their squad in comparison to the Hibernian, they ended up in the cup final and had a reasonable season in the league. So I'm sure we'll be looking for a few highlights and maybe a good cup run next year.